The Philippines, a land of unparalleled beauty, resilience, and a history as rich as its vibrant landscapes.
The Philippines, a nation of more than 7,000 islands scattered like emerald jewels across the Pacific Ocean. From the air, the archipelago seems timeless. Mountains rising from the sea, rivers carving valleys, coral reefs glowing beneath turquoise waters. But this beauty hides a history as turbulent as the storms that sweep across its coasts. For centuries, these islands have been a crossroads of cultures, a meeting place of East and West, a stage where empires clashed and ordinary people struggled to survive. Yet through it all, the Filipino spirit endured, resilient, adaptive, and unbroken. This is not just the story of colonizers and conquerors. It is the story of a people who carried their identity across centuries of change. Today, we will journey through time, from the first settlers who braved ancient seas to the rise of kingdoms, the clash of empires, the struggle for independence, and the forging of a modern nation. This is the entire history of the Philippines. 50,000 years ago, long before the word Philippines existed, the islands were already alive with human footsteps. The world was colder, seas were lower, and land bridges connected what are now separate islands. Small bands of hunter-gatherers crossed into Luzon and Mindanao, carrying stone tools, fire, and the knowledge of survival. In caves like Tabon in Palawan, archaeologists have found fragments of bone and tools, silent witnesses to lives lived tens of thousands of years ago. These early settlers hunted giant deer and wild pigs, gathered fruits and roots, and fished in rivers that teemed with life. Later, waves of Austronesian voyagers arrived. They were master navigators, reading the stars, the winds, and the currents. They brought rice cultivation, pottery, and seafaring traditions. Picture their outrigger canoes slicing through the waves, families huddled together, carrying seeds, animals, and stories. These voyagers were not just migrants, they were culture bearers, planting the roots of what would become Filipino identity. Their languages, myths, and songs would echo across the islands, binding communities together.
By the first millennium, the islands were alive with small communities known as barangays. Each was led by a datu, a local chief whose authority rested on kinship, trade, and loyalty. Life in these barangays was simple, but it was far from primitive. Rice paddies shimmered in the sun, their terraces carved into mountainsides with ingenuity. Fishermen cast nets into turquoise waters, bringing home the day's catch. Women wove cloth from abaca fibers, while blacksmiths forged blades from iron. Trade connected these barangays to the wider world. Chinese merchants brought porcelain and silk. Indian traders introduced beads and Hindu epics. Arab sailors carried spices and the teachings of Islam. Think of each barangay as a puzzle piece, independent yet connected by trade routes and shared traditions. These communities were the foundation of Filipino society, resilient, adaptable, and deeply tied to the rhythms of nature.
Between the 10th and 15th centuries, the island saw the rise of powerful kingdoms and sultanates. In the north, the kingdom of Tondo thrived along the Pasig River, its rulers commanding respect through wealth and diplomacy. In the Visayas, the Rajanate of Cebu became a hub of trade, its harbors filled with foreign ships. In the south, the Sultanate of Sulu and the Sultanate of Maguindanao flourished, blending local traditions with Islamic faith. By the 14th century, Islam had spread widely through trade and missionaries. Mosques rose in Mindanao, and sultans ruled with both spiritual and political authority. These were not isolated islands. They were part of a vast Asian network connected to China, India, and the Middle East. The Philippines was already global, centuries before the word globalization was coined.
In 1521, the course of Philippine history shifted dramatically. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese navigator sailing under the Spanish crown, arrived on the shores of Cebu. To the Spanish, this was a new world to conquer, a stepping stone to Asia's riches. To the islanders, it was the arrival of strangers with strange weapons, strange gods, and strange ambitions. At first, alliances were forged. Raja Humabon of Cebu welcomed Magellan, intrigued by the power of these newcomers. Baptisms were performed, crosses raised, and promises exchanged. But not all were willing to submit. On the island of Mactan, a chieftain named Lapu-Lapu stood firm. He refused to bow to foreign rule, declaring that his people would remain free. On April 27, 1521, the two worlds collided. As dawn broke, Magellan led his armored men across the shallows toward Mactan shore. But the terrain betrayed them. Their heavy armor slowed them. Their cannons could not reach the beach. Lapu-Lapu's warriors, swift and fierce, rained spears and arrows upon them. In the chaos, Magellan fell, struck down by the very people he sought to subdue. That day, Lapu-Lapu became the first hero of Philippine resistance. His defiance echoed across centuries, a reminder that the Filipino spirit could never be easily conquered. Though Spain would return, the memory of Mactan lived on as a symbol of courage and independence.
Magellan's death did not end Spain's ambitions. In 1565, Miguel López de Legazpi returned, this time with greater force. He established the first permanent Spanish settlement in Cebu, and soon after, Manila was founded and declared the capital. For the next 333 years, the Philippines would be a colony of Spain. Catholicism spread rapidly. Friars built stone churches that still stand today, their bells calling the faithful to prayer. The Spanish imposed a new social order. Encomiendas granted land to colonists, while Filipinos were forced into labor and tribute. Yet the old ways did not vanish. Indigenous traditions blended with Catholic rituals, creating a uniquely Filipino faith. Fiestas filled with both Christian saints and echoes of ancient harvest rites. It was as if a new operating system had been installed over an old one, changing language, religion, and governance, but never fully erasing what came before. Beneath the surface, resentment simmered. The people endured centuries of colonial rule, but the desire for freedom never disappeared.
For more than 2 centuries, the Philippines became the linchpin of a global trade network. The Manila-Acapulco galleon trade connected Asia to the Americas. From Manila, ships carried porcelain, silk, and spices across the Pacific. From Mexico, silver poured in, fueling commerce across Asia. Manila became the first true global city. In its streets, Chinese merchants bargained with Spanish officials, while Filipino laborers hauled goods to the docks. Wealth flowed, but it was uneven. The colony remained dependent on Spain, its people burdened by taxes and forced labor. The galleon trade was like the internet of its time, connecting distant worlds instantly, but physically. Ideas, goods, and cultures mingled, but so too did inequality and exploitation. Beneath the glitter of trade, resentment grew, waiting for the spark of revolution.
By the 19th century, the winds of change swept across the islands. A new class of educated Filipinos, the Ilustrados, began to question Spanish rule. José Rizal, with his novels Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, exposed the injustices of colonial society. His words awakened a nation, planting seeds of nationalism in the hearts of his people. But words alone were not enough. Andrés Bonifacio and the Katipunan transformed that awakening into action. In 1896, the cry of Pugadlawan rang out as revolutionaries tore their cedulas in defiance. Battles erupted across the islands. Spain faltered, and for a brief moment, independence seemed within reach. Yet history had another twist. In 1898, the United States defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War. The Philippines, instead of gaining freedom, found itself under a new colonial master. The dream of independence was delayed once more.
From 1899 to 1902, the Philippines fought fiercely against American forces in a war that was brutal and bloody. Villages were burned, thousands perished, and yet the struggle for independence continued. The war is often forgotten, but it was central to the nation's story, a reminder that freedom was never freely given, but always fought for. Under American rule, schools were built, English was introduced, and new systems of government were established. Roads, bridges, and institutions modernized the islands. Yet beneath these changes, the desire for true independence never faded. The Filipino spirit endured, waiting for its moment.
In 1941, the world was engulfed in war. Japan invaded the Philippines, bringing years of suffering. Cities were bombed, families displaced, and atrocities committed. Yet resistance grew. Guerrilla fighters waged war in the jungles, refusing to surrender. The Battle of Manila in 1945 left the city in ruins, one of the most devastated in the world. But from the ashes, hope emerged. On July 4, 1946, the Philippines finally gained independence. The flag was raised, the anthem played, and a new republic was born. After centuries of colonization, the Filipino people could finally call their nation their own. The young republic faced immense challenges. Corruption, poverty, and political instability tested the nation. In 1972, Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law, ushering in years of dictatorship. Freedoms were curtailed, dissent silenced, and fear spread across the land. But in 1986, the world watched in awe as millions of Filipinos gathered on EDSA, armed not with guns, but with rosaries, prayers, and courage. The People Power Revolution toppled a regime without a single shot fired. It was a testament to the strength of unity and the power of hope. Today, the Philippines is a nation of contradictions, rich in culture, yet struggling with inequality, deeply traditional, yet globally connected. Its people, over 110 million strong, are its greatest resource. The history of the Philippines is not just a story of colonizers and conquerors. It is the story of a people who endured, adapted, and triumphed. And the story is still being written.